Which is the best devil fruit? I mean, if you live in the world of One Piece, people like Teach might have a very quick, easy answer for you. But we don't live in the world of One Piece. So we're ranking today every devil fruit based on how great they would be if you lived in our world, which you probably do. This is a world without Haki, Sea Stone, weirdly invincible humans, and of course, other people that have devil fruits.
Because getting into world-shaking battles isn't probably a goal of any of our viewers, we are going to be ranking the fruits using 4 Earth-ready categories. Number 1, convenience. How much would this make your day-to-day life easier? Number 2, job use. Would this help you get or keep a good job? Number 3, survival. Would this ability keep you alive and healthy longer than normal? And what number am I on? Number 4, fun. Would this fruit add to your overall happiness?
We will be splitting this video up into different videos, because it really isn't fair to compare Zoans, Logia, and Paramecias, since they're all very different. Also, we're going to be doing the non-canon fruits in a different video because those get absolutely crazy. So make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on those other videos.
So as John Mayer once said, let's rank every canon Paramecia ability in One Piece. That joke doesn't make any sense here.
Starting in F tier, we have the fruits that are so useless in our world that being able to swim would actually be considered a superpower in comparison. And at the bottom of F tier is, unsurprisingly, the worst fruit in One Piece, which is also the worst fruit in real life, the Jacket Fruit. Basically, this ability allows you to transform into a skin suit someone could wear if they want to. But why would they ever do that? The uses of such a power are very few and far between. Like, maybe the school bully is beating you, so you ask your much older brother to wear you like a skin suit so you can have your revenge? Or maybe you have a great face but a terrible body, but your friend has a great body and a terrible face, so you have them wear you like a Silence of the Lambs character and you win a beauty contest together? So yeah, basically, unless you live in a sitcom, this isn't the fruit for you. Send us more insane uses for the Jacket Fruit in the comments so we can laugh at them and maybe make a compilation video.
Not much better is the Mix Fruit. This one may be higher if we knew much about it, but we don't, so it isn't. But basically, what we do know is that it allows you to fuse with other people to become a bigger person. Are you still in control, or do your minds become one? Are you stronger, or just bigger? Is it gross, like in Steven Universe? All we know is that in One Piece, someone used it to fuse with their siblings, which is gross, and why would you do that?
Next up is the Rust Fruit. Do remember, this is the list of fruits you would want in our world, a world where having destructive superpowers doesn't make you the Pirate King, but puts you on a government watch list. So, the power to make perfectly good things rusty is good for, like, I don't know, petty revenge at best, and, you know, all they would have to do to get back at you is push you in a pool, so.
Maybe that's the person that wronged Taylor Swift in Bad Blood.
You know, maybe it was John Mayer.
She did date.
She did. That's why we included that in the video.
Yeah, perfect tie-in. Totally planned. Sorry, it's my turn. Next is the Munch Fruit. The ability to eat and safely digest anything, the ability to fuse with those objects and use their unique traits as your own, the power to consume your own fat to stay slim and hot. Why is this fruit in F tier? Well, I'll tell you. Because it is one of the few fruits with a drawback. Constant, gnawing hunger. Hunger that can never be satiated. Never again will you feel the sweet relief of a perfect meal or the relaxation after a trip to the buffet. No, you will forever suffer. So, yeah, no thanks, I'd rather swim.
Next up in F tier is the Tremor Fruit. This is where the list starts getting really interesting. Whitebeard's fruit is said to be one of the greatest in the One Piece world. The problem is, we live by very different rules here. We live in a society, one that generally frowns on terrorism. Are we allowed to say that word in a video? Anyway.
We're already on the watch list, it's good.
Anyway, remember that thing about being on a government watch list? Forget that. People find out you can make earthquakes, you're absolutely toast. They are taking you out, just like they did with, Whitebeard in One Piece. But unlike him, you can take maybe like 3 bullets max before you die. Once they find you, it's over. And it isn't like you can try to hone your power over time to be able to make small, useful vibrations. We've seen people who are new at their powers in One Piece. It takes a while to get used to them. And while you try to get used to the Tremor Fruit, there's going to be a lot of mass destruction before you can learn to do whatever weird niche thing you have planned.
Next up is the Tuntan Fruit. This one just lets you weigh several tons. There's absolutely no use for that. Ever. I mean, maybe it could stop you from getting kidnapped, but literally any fruit on this list except the Jacket Fruit would do that better. Jumping into a lake and swimming away would get the job done too. Besides, if you just turn really, really heavy and sit there, the person trying to kidnap you could just stab you. Unless they want you alive. But there's other ways to carry away a person. first. Never mind.
But speaking of really bad fruits, we have the sticky fruit, or the beta in Japanese. It allows you to emit boogers from your body. F tier.
Next up is the Popup Fruit. No, not the Popup Fruit, not the grandpa. Popup Fruit. Although a Popup Fruit would be pretty funny. But anyway, actually, we sent this one to the Discord to help with since we couldn't find a single good use for it. And turns out the Discord couldn't either. Which reminds me, join us on the Discord and help us rank these fruits that we'll be making in our upcoming videos. Because sometimes we really need your help to decide if it's better to turn into a wolf or a cat.
Next up is D tier, or the not really worth it tier. Here we have fruits that may have some practical use if you really try to think of one, but are otherwise still not much better than the joy of the above ground pool.
So at the bottom of this tier we have the ripe fruit. This is another almost purely destructive ability, which, as we mentioned, they aren't that great. Plus, this one can make stuff stink. You're probably wondering why it's not an F tier, as it seems objectively worse than popping stuff like a balloon. But that's simple. You see, people really value aged foods. So with a power like this, you could mass produce things like finely aged wines, or other stuff that needs to be aged. It's niche, but at least it has a couple points in the job usefulness category, so it's just barely edging it out of F tier.
Next up is the Venom Fruit, which is once again another highly destructive ability that is actually potentially worse for anyone who isn't into murder, which, according to our YouTube analytics, is most of you. However, this one does come with a distinct benefit of poison immunity, so you could live in Australia without worrying about spiders, snakes, and platypuses. Just steer clear of the giant jacked kangaroos, and you're fine.
And then we have the Pom Pom Fruit. Despite having very niche applications, this fruit could be pretty fun, especially if you're into sports. Just start cheering and suddenly your team is unstoppable. So you could be the world's greatest cheerleader. Or let's say you're at a party. You would literally be the life of the party. Or, war, I guess, you could rally up the troops. But anyway, morale and energy are actually pretty important things, so I could think of a lot of applications for this.
We're still putting it in D tier.
Well, I mean, really high charisma could do this too. You don't necessarily need a devil fruit.
Yeah, exactly. Next up is the Wash Fruit. This is another fruit that we don't really understand well enough, but we do know it purifies the hearts of the wicked, so I suppose it would have potentially a horrifying application in the legal system, but honestly, we don't really know enough to say more about it, so D tier.
Oh, the Bomb Fruit. Before you say gross though, remember, you can explode any part of you, not just your snot. The user of this fruit was just a really nasty person. Anyway, yes, this is one of those no-fly list fruits. Making your own fireworks and being able to survive any explosion unharmed give this fruit enough points in the fun and survival category to move it out of F tier and even give it a little edge in D.
And then we have the Time Fruit. This one is exclusively beneficial, although it is a little niche. Most people just wouldn't want to jump ahead in time and say goodbye to everyone and everything they know and love, but having the option to do so is pretty awesome. Sadly, the daily practical application is basically zero, especially if you've watched Adam Sandler's Click, so D tier for sure.
Then we have the Wheel Fruit. This fruit is very dumb, not gonna lie, but sometimes I get tired of walking and would love to just, roll to where I wanna go. Like a panda. Once again, dumb, but when every shoe is a Heeley, life is just a bit more fun. Oh wait, no, not like a panda. That's not how pandas roll. I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm gonna keep that in there.
Next up is the Sparkle or Diamond Fruit, the one Jozu has. Diamonds are neat, but unlike what fiction would teach you, they are brittle and they will shatter under the same amount of force that would hurt you anyway. Granted, this ability would make you hard to cut if someone tries to stab you, but it seems this power is not always active, but instead only when the user activates their diamond protection. And since I have never known I was about to get cut before I was cut, I'm not thinking this one is crazy useful.
And now we're gonna talk about the Spring. When the world is your trampoline, and you are your own pogo stick, life is just a little brighter. But being kind of fun isn't really enough to get this power out of D tier.
Next up is the Snip Fruit. There are a lot of Paramecia fruits that let you freely manipulate your environment, and a lot of them are really neat. This isn't really one of those. While being able to cut up solid objects like they are paper certainly has some applications, we couldn't think of any ones that were useful enough to get it out of high D tier.
The berry fruit is one of the weirdest out there fruits. This one ranks where it does because at least it seems like it provides some resistance to blunt force damage, though even that is unclear. Basically, it turns you into just a buttload of balls. Ugh. That expression. So if you ever wanted to be a human ball pit and have kids crawl around in you, well, this may be the fruit for you, but you might have Chris Hansen knocking on your door.
And speaking of absolutely bizarre fruits, there is the puff puff or lamp fruit. On paper, this one sounds great. You summon a genie from your stomach, like you're a magic lamp. But from what we've seen, it really isn't that great. The genie does not grant wishes, and you apparently have to continually rub yourself to keep it out. To what end? Well, we don't know. Is the genie sentient, or is he just a manifestation of your will? Is he capable of performing complex tasks on your behalf? These are the questions we need answered if this fruit wants to get out of D tier.
Plus, it just looks kind of ridiculous if you're just standing there rubbing yourself while... I don't really have to finish that sentence, don't I? Finally, in D tier, we have the kilo. This fruit may not be as powerful as the Tuntan, but in a world where crushing people to death should not be a priority, this fruit is far superior. With the ability to make yourself weigh about 2 pounds, you can float through the air or perhaps even fly with enough ingenuity. Because obviously you would need a means to stay in the air, but if flying is your thing, you could manage it with just a little effort, and maybe a bird suit. Granted, that sounds exhausting, so this fruit is still in D tier, but it almost made it to C tier. It probably would have if it had any potential uses outside of thrill-seeking and beating that guy at the carnival that claims he can guess your weight.
Next up is C tier, the sure, I guess category. It's filled to the brim with fruits that we really wouldn't mind having, but really do make for pretty lame superpowers.
So at the bottom of this tier, we have the Love fruit. Now, I guess this one is probably more useful to women than it is to men. Although I guess everybody can get harassed, really. But anyway, if you're the type of person that gets harassed a lot, you can make use of this one. Also, good protection against assault. And, what more can I say? You can get people to stop leering at you at the Walmart.
Just above that is a mysterious fruit we do not have the name for, but it is Wolf's power on Blackbeard's script. We're a little foggy on the details, but we do know one thing. His fruit allows him to turn into a giant, and he's already a giant. So if we ate it, we probably would just turn into a regular sized giant. Now, some of you may see practical value in this ability, but aside from being really good at manual labor, I fail to see how being able to do this would be particularly convenient, especially if you can't control the size change and just go to full size automatically.
Next is the Mark fruit. Once again, we should remind you that this list is not about which fruits will allow you to murder. So basically, if you get the Mark fruit in real life, you're going to be a really good quarterback. That's the guy who throws the ball in American football, for those of you who don't know. And maybe you could be good at baseball too, though a lot of other skills are involved in that one. So I guess this would make you really good at hitting 2 specific people in dodgeball too. But after that, you'd be useless since you could only hit those 2 people, even after they are out. After all, this fruit does come with the caveat that you can only hit the last person you touched with the hand doing the throwing. So yeah, niche sport usages. Although in all those sports, I'm pretty sure you slap people's butts and it's socially acceptable, so touching another person would be pretty easy, but you'd have to plan ahead.
Calculated butt slaps. Next up is the Swim fruit. You may be surprised to see this fruit up so high, but think about it. It lets you swim through solid objects. It is basically phasing, but messy and weird. Mom calling you down for dinner? Cannonball through the floor. Want to go outside, but the door is just too far away? Slip through the wall like it's made of water. Want to go for a swim, but you'll die if you try? Use the backyard. Though, you should be cautioned, I don't know if this ability will be useful for people who don't know how to swim now.
The cage fruit is a tricky one. You have to be creative with it. I guess it would work if you were a cop and, you could just cage people and throw them into the back of your cop car. Or maybe if you're you work in a wrestling ring and you provide the cage. Or if you work in animal control, you can cage animals. I mean, there's a lot of practical uses for it if you need a cage in a pinch, but cages are pretty easy to come by, so that's why it's not the worst fruit in the world because it can be convenient, but it's also not really the best fruit in the world because unless you specifically need cages for any of these specific situations, I guess if you fall into the ocean and you're surrounded by sharks, you could cage yourself, but how likely is that to happen?
Plus, you would have eaten a devil fruit, so you would die anyway, because you're in the ocean.
Okay, so scratch that. It's not even useful in that situation.
Next up is the Stitch Fruit. This one is a little specific also, but the ability to attach any two things you want together with apparently near indestructible threads is very handy. There's lots of uses. I mean, I can't think of any off the bat, but they're probably there. Plus, I tend to rip my clothes a lot, so being able to fix them on the fly might be pretty cool.
And then we have Iroki's ability. Apparently, Iroki has the ability to absorb damage done to him to turn massive. The parameters of this ability are unclear, and we don't know what sorts of damage it absorbs or if that damage still hurts him, so we're going to tentatively leave it in C tier because that could be useful, maybe, in a fight. If you get into a lot of scraps, perhaps.
Or if you just get hurt a lot. Next up is the Straw Fruit. This is one of the only fruits where I'll admit that the damage it does to others could be a useful side effect. Mostly because depending on how sadistic you are, this fruit will make you completely immune to injury. Aside from that though, the ability also does have some interesting uses. For instance, the ability to turn into a monster and control straw, shaping it into useful objects, which is, a pretty neat thing to do. So C tier for sure.
Opop's fruit is here in C tier just for the pure fun aspect of it. Of course, we assume his instruments can be used as just regular instruments, not necessarily for hurting people. If that's the case, this would just be a delightful ability for the musically inclined to have at their disposal.
Next up is the Hobby Fruit. The applications of this one are a bit dark, but it's still enough to put it in C tier. Of course, there's the potential eternal youth to consider, though it's unclear if Sugar will just randomly die as a child somewhere in her 80s. We don't really know. But immortal or not, aging sucks, and it would be cool to not have that happen at all. Now, would it be cool to be 8 years old forever? Well, no, but it beats being old. Besides, it appears the fruit freezes you at your current age. It doesn't make you younger, so if you ate it, as a teenager, an adult, it might be alright. Also, the main part of her ability has some interesting applications too. For instance, you could grant immortality to someone if they don't mind being forgotten by all their loved ones and living as a toy forever. Still, we've seen Sugar choose the type of toy someone becomes, so that last part might not be so bad if you give that person a good form that they'll be able to enjoy. This could also potentially be useful for people with PTSD. You could turn the person who hurt them into a toy so they would forget the thing ever happened. You just have to make sure you wrote down somewhere to watch out for that toy to make sure it doesn't hurt anyone else.
Then we have the Arms fruit. You can turn into weapons, great for hobbyists and hunters. I mean, there aren't a lot of other non-sinister uses for this fruit, but for the right person, this could be a fruit of choice, so it goes here in C tier.
Next up, we have a fruit that's never been given an official English name, so we're going to call it the Weighty Fruit. Now, most of the things Fujitora does would not be super useful, since I don't feel the need to bring down asteroids every day, but he did make a boat fly around once with it, so that seems super fun. C tier.
Want to paint the walls in your house? With the Art Fruit, boom, it's done. Don't like it? Boom, you painted it a different way. I only led with that because it isn't directly stated whether or not you need artistic ability to master the Art Fruit, so at least the practical value is still there. Either way, imagine what a good artist could do with unlimited creative freedom of this sort. It is a very good pick, but we're probably going to leave it here in C tier since it's unclear how much skill is required to use it.
So there are a few abilities on this list that let you manifest a certain food, control it, and basically use it as an all-around tool. Now, these come in varying degrees of usefulness, with butter being the lowest, as it isn't even tasty by itself, and butter is not known for its useful properties outside of cooking. So yeah, that's where the butterfruit goes.
And then next up is the cream fruit. See last point, but at least cream tastes better than butter.
Then we have a somewhat similar fruit, Smoothie's ring fruit. Smoothie's fruit is, well, weird. I feel like it would be tons of fun to go around tasting weird things and giving drinks made out of crazy stuff to people. So at the very least, it would be fun enough to excuse not being able to swim. C tier.
Plus, you can make a really niche shake stand. Push is the next fruit. You would think that an ability like Morley's would be near the top, right? The ability to basically treat any solid surface like clay? Well, it's a cool power, but when it comes to manipulation-based powers, it is one of the worst. Basically, you turn things into a saggy, sloppy, messy substance you can push and pull freely. You aren't going to be crafting fine art or useful architecture with it, just moving it out of the way like it is a wall made of honey. I'm sure it has its uses, but there are a lot of fruits that do the same thing, but so much better.
Next up is the Ripple, or I like to call it the Flutter fruit. This is a pretty cool fruit. Basically, you can temporarily turn anything into fabric, including yourself. so people could wear you like a jacket if you wanted them to. And that's a pretty cool power. In all seriousness though, this would be great for travel since you could pack a lot of things and fold it all like clothing. Why look for a parking space when you can fold up your car and wear it like a cape? Want to sneak a 5-course meal into the movie theater? Fold it up and put it in your pocket. Are you a girl with tiny pockets? Well, you can now fold up your phone and put it in those tiny pockets. Possibilities are endless. Still C tier though, because compared with the stuff coming up, these are kinda dumb possibilities.
The Spin Fruit is only here because you can finally tell people you identify as an attack helicopter, and then just helicopter away into the sky. Aside from that, it's a stupid power.
Then in C tier, we have the Cook Fruit. This would 100% be S tier if Big Mom didn't say that the food the Cook Fruit makes didn't taste very good. I mean, it is great if you're super hungry and your friend who said they were meeting you for dinner is 45 minutes late, you can just eat your hat while you wait. Or if you get lost in the wilderness for some reason, everything is mediocre tasting veal parmesan. Or if you're a vegan and there's only meat on the menu, you can turn the burgers into veggie burgers.
And lastly in C tier, we have the Heat Fruit. Just falling short of B tier is this fruit. It has a number of uses like heating up cold tea or keeping you warm when it's cold outside. In fact, you no longer need to pay for heating in your house as you can do it all yourself. The only reasons this versatile ability didn't make it into B tier is because, well, the ones in B tier are even more useful. Not everyone lives in a place that gets cold, and I know a lot of our viewers are in India, and if you had this ability, everyone would expect you to always help with cooking. I'm pretty sure India still gets cold sometimes. I've never been to India, so let me know if that was accurate. I'm under the impression that it's usually hot.
Next up is B tier, or the very useful tier. These are fruits you would certainly be very happy to get, even if they aren't your favorite, for the simple reason that they would make your life so much easier.
So first up, we have the Revive Fruit. You die, you come back. Pretty sweet. And as we learned after the time skip, this may not just be a one-up mushroom, but true immortality. Considering how Brooke has just been fine as a Skelly for the past 50 years, it is possible he wouldn't have aged if he hadn't died either. Granted, that is speculative. But so far, there is no evidence that anything but water can permanently off the user of this fruit. Plus, it lets you leave your body, something that can be used for all sorts of purposes.
Then we have the Barrier Fruit, one of the absolute best fruits for self-defense. Barto's barrier is invincible, and from what we can tell, he can use it for more than just defense. It is basically an invincible object that you can give any shape or size and take anywhere with you. Your imagination is the limit on this one.
Then we have the Wax Fruit, another fruit that requires a little imagination, but is worth it. Basically, you can create an unlimited amount of hard as steel wax and use it for whatever purpose you want. A chair, a table, a house. Just so long as it doesn't get too hot, you have a very dynamic and useful tool on your side. Although, I don't know. I don't think wax is that great, but whatever. You could use it to start a candle business, but who hasn't started a candle business, really?
Next up, we have the Biscuit or Bis Fruit, apparently. This is basically the wax fruit, but instead of heat, it is weak to moisture. Also, you can eat it, so it's slightly better.
Next up, we have Bonnie's Fruit. Now, this may seem like it belongs higher, but remember, we don't know anything about this fruit's limits or weaknesses. All we know is that it can make people, including yourself, younger or older. Even temporary youthening is amazing, though, so B tier is a good fit for now. Of course, if you could indefinitely extend the lifespan of yourself and all your loved ones by making them younger every time they age, this would probably be much higher, but we just don't know if it works that way yet.
Then we have the Mochi Fruit. Before you get too bent out of shape about this one's placement, remember that Katakuri was awakened, could see the future, and was basically just the best at everything. That aside, his fruit is really good for keeping you from getting hurt. Plus, its stretchy abilities would mean that you could reach the remote from the other side of the room without getting up, always a plus.
The Gum and the Chop Fruit are kinda together on this one. We couldn't decide which of these ranked higher, so we presented it to the Voice of All Things Discord, link below, and they couldn't decide either, so we're going to call it a tie. Both of these are basically useful for the same things that the Mochi Fruit is good for, reaching faraway things and preventing injury. It's just that each one does these things a little differently. For instance, the Chop Fruit has more precise control over the distant body parts, but the Gum has the added benefit of double immunity against common injury. The Chop makes you immune to cuts, but the Gum prevents blunt injuries and electrocution. So let us know in the comments which one you prefer.
Then we have the String Fruit. On paper, this one shouldn't be as good as it is. Even if we exclude Doflamingo's awakening, he was able to use his strings to suture wounds, control people, slice open basically anything, and walk on clouds. Now, granted, you won't see me doing that last one because it's scary to walk up so high, and I am not a tightrope walker, but I may swing around like Spider-Man if I had this ability. So overall, B tier.
I'd make living puppets to terrify people. The Noro or the Sloso Fruit is next. Imagine you drop something and it's going to break or spill. Noro Noro, a car is about to hit yours. Noro Noro, someone's trying to mug you. Noro Noro, someone is being annoying and won't leave you alone. Noro Noro. With the ability to slow anything down, I'm probably not even scratching the surface with what this power can do. If it weren't for the time limit on it, this would be absolutely broken.
Then there's the Jiki Fruit, which is another one that has never been translated officially to English. The Magnet Fruit. Now, we live in a world that's full of metal and technology, so this ability is so much more useful in our world than it even is in the One Piece world. Magneto powers? Yes, please. Of course, this is still in B tier because the powers get even better from here somehow.
And just think about all the tinfoil hats you can remove. If you're an alien. Then we have the Pocket Fruit. Basically, this gives you the power to store an unlimited amount of anything inside your body. If it wasn't for the fact that it makes visible pockets on your skin, which is pretty horrifying, this would be much higher. Aesthetics are important.
Then we have the Memo Fruit. The ability to read anyone's memories back like a film. The power to remove or alter both their memories and yours. Terrifying. Yes, but there are so many ways to use this. It would be A tier if it wasn't for the fact that you have to physically pull out said memories, making it easy for someone to see you doing it.
If you wanted to go on a trip, where would you go? Well, with the Paw ability, you can repel objects faster than the eye can see, and you could go anywhere, or send anyone anywhere. You can also apparently remove pain and injury from a person and give it to another person. Kinda seems unrelated, but this fruit's kind of a twofer. If there weren't more effective ways to do this higher up on the list, this would probably be A tier.
Another amazing ability is the Horm Fruit. With complete control over your own hormones and hence your body, you could do some amazing things. Look however you want, be as strong as you want, and most importantly, cure your mental illness with direct shots of things like dopamine and serotonin. Now, why isn't this A tier? That's like the best ability, right? Well, little secret, there is a better version of this ability. And then we have A tier, the great picks. This next tier is not really in any particular order because basically there's probably everyone's number one pick for a fruit they would want somewhere in here. And what every person wants is going to be a little different. However, each and every one of these provides the user with an absolutely life-changing ability of one kind or another.
At the bottom is the Hollow Fruit. With the power of astral projection, you could let your body rest while you talk to people or go about activities that don't require you to touch things. You can also change the shape and size of that projection. And it is possible Perona wasn't using that ability to its full potential. Also, the little ghost she could create, giving her eyes everywhere and an array of abilities like emotional manipulation and explosions is pretty cool.
Then we have the Lick Fruit. This is the ability to make unlimited candy. I feel like I really don't have to go in depth with a few of these high tier fruits because just thinking about them is exciting. Unlimited candy, enough said.
Remember how Mr. 3 said that abilities are all about the way a person uses them? Well, let's just say that Zala is a bit of a dunce. Aside from the somewhat useless ability to make herself pointy, Zala showed that she can use her needles to inject herself with body-altering substances that transform her body in unrealistic ways. Sound familiar? Well, with her one act of doping herself up, she proved that she can use her powers to probably do anything Ivankov can do, plus go full Sonic the Hedgehog cosplay. Can't beat that, so this is where the Spike Fruit goes.
Then we have the Hana or Flower Fruit. When we talk about powers that let you reach stuff on the other side of the room, there are a few better than the Hana Fruit. Sprouting arms anywhere? It's so useful. In fact, in One Piece, Robin is a rare case of someone who uses her powers almost exclusively how someone in our world would. Like, I just love how she uses her fruit to facilitate her own laziness and amusement. It's so relatable.
The Slip Fruit, aside from making you practically indestructible, makes you hot. Now, I feel like I would rank this one higher, but I'm already hot. No, I'm just kidding. But we don't actually know how well this fruit protects the user against harm. I mean, there isn't much higher it can rank, and say what you want about beauty standards, no one would say no to being insanely hot after eating just one fruit once.
Also in A tier, we have the Door Fruit. When you have the Door Fruit, nothing can stop you. Not walls, not doors, not locks, nothing. Which, granted, could be used for some nefarious ends, but the reason I actually ranked it so high is the fact that it gives you your own personal secret dimension. Like, that's just crazy cool.
And then the Mirror Fruit, same reason, different execution. I think this one may just be a bit better since the mirror world seems better than the weird foggy dimension Bluno uses. Plus, you can reflect images of people to disguise yourself or others. Fun stuff.
Then we have the Clone Fruit. You may be wondering why this is here, since I usually rank down fruits that offer a lesser version of another fruit, and we just talked about what the Mirror Fruit can do. However, this fruit isn't making you a reflection of someone else. fruits, you are completely transforming into another body with everything that body has to offer. Plus, you can mix and match and basically look however you want. And if you get tired of a certain look, just change to something else. You really can't go wrong with this one.
The Bubble Bubble or Awa Awa fruit is next. Now, we may be a little biased, but after this last year, the ability to ensure that anything you want will be completely clean really sounds like a fantastic power, don't you agree? Plus, you can use any bathroom you want without worry. Not to mention that Khalifa said her fruit could allow her to wash away intangible concepts, like someone's strength. I feel like this one is a deep well of untapped potential.
Then we have the Shadow Fruit. This is one of the only fruits I'm willing to give a high ranking because of nefarious reasons. Imagine you wanted to be the world's best piano player or win the Olympic gold medal. Just steal the shadows of someone with the skill you want, pop it in your body, and boom. Your videos no longer need to be sponsored by Skillshare. Plus, you can animate inanimate objects or your dead loved ones if you're feeling like a real weirdo. Now, I don't recommend it, but you know, the option's there. I mean, you got to admit that bringing your stuffed animals to life would be pretty cool, right?
Well, I wouldn't want that. They've seen unspeakable things. The Solso fruit is next. Speaking of which, you can just bring anything to life and make it serve you. To varying degrees of loyalty, yes, but still. Imagine all the friends you could have with a power like this. Imagine being able to give your dog or cat the ability to actually communicate with you. How freaking fun would that be, though? Granted, you have to steal said life force from someone else, but we don't need to talk about that right now.
Then we have the Glare fruit. Mind reading. Do I need to say more? Well, if that didn't convince you that this is an epic ability, there's also the fact that you can share memories with others and see everything going on around in an enormous area around you. Plus, apparently you can control your tears? Violet used them as giant weapons, but who knows what else you could do with that ability.
Then we have the Garb fruit. In the world of One Piece, this ability has somewhat of a niche usage, but in our world, the ability to wear any clothing you can think of at any time is amazing. The one weakness to this power is that after the clothing takes more than a certain amount of damage, it vanishes. But realistically, how much damage does your clothing take on a daily basis? Probably not much unless you work in construction or something. And if you could make clothes for yourself or others out of thin air, you wouldn't need to work a labor job anymore. Think about the brand name goods you could be sporting for free every day. Roll up with a new pair of Jordans, a Rolex, and Ray-Bans every single day, everyone will be so jealous.
And then we have Kanjuro's fruit. This one is a bit skill-based, but the cool part is you can still do amazing stuff even as the world's worst artist. Need food? Boom. Want to fly? You got it. You can even sell your stuff like Kanjuro sold his fish. So even though the full scope of this fruit's ability would take years of training, right out of the box it would be a winner. A tier.
Now the Clear fruit is one of my personal favorites, the one that gives you the ability to be invisible. Now, while people like Absalom or Sanji would use it for nefarious purposes, I feel like this one is good for innocent purposes as well. For instance, it'd be really good for espionage. I'm not really sure how innocent of a job that is, but it works for a job. It's good for people who are very shy. You can finally be that true wallflower you always wanted to be. And the fact that you can make anything you touch invisible is really good for magic tricks. So if you want to be a magician, I guess there's that. Me personally, I just kind of like the idea of walking around listening to people and them not knowing that I'm there. Not in a pervy way, but like in just a curiosity kind of way. I'm not a pervert.
And then we have the millet fruit. Do you love animals? Do you wish they would love you unconditionally and never bite you? Well, this fruit would make your day. Any and all animals who eat your cheek scrapings are your pets now, and they would do anything for you. And not just dogs or cats, mind you, but gorillas and tigers could be your pets too. Imagine just riding around on a polar bear and being completely safe. That could be you.
The Hyo fruit gives you the ability to transfer HP between people. With this, you could be the ultimate doctor. Instead of blood drives, you could have HP drives. And once you collect enough, you could just give some disabled person back their leg. I'm not sure how it would work on things like illnesses or cancer, but you would be really great at post-op care and rehabilitation. At the very least, you could be the world's greatest plastic surgeon, never leaving a single scar.
And then we have the Book fruit. This fruit may surprise you, but it is one of the absolute best. One, you can fly on your books for some reason. That's always a plus. But you can also keep things and people in stasis in these books. So for instance, if your loved one has a terminal illness, illness, put them in the book with some things to do until a cure is found. Or, as we briefly saw, the user of this fruit can create a mini world to trap people in. Now, that might sound little on the evil side, but imagine what you could do as a game master. You can put your fellow role players in a book that operates by the rules you invented and let them play through your story as if it were real life. There aren't many fruits that rank as high as this one in the fun category.
If you've ever lived in a city, you know why the Pom Pom Fruit is A tier. The ability to block out sounds, especially specific ones, is invaluable in a loud environment. Plus, imagine you want to practice a musical instrument or singing and are either embarrassed or don't want to wake up your family. Boom, cone of silence. No one can hear you. Or if you want to record something, you have complete control over the audio quality, something that we desperately need. And now in our era, we understand a lot more about how sound waves work, so this fruit may actually be a treasure trove of untapped potential, or at the very least, it would be a great way to get a full night's sleep.
And then we have the Castle Fruit. This one is insane. Probably one of my favorites. Certain contender for my number one pick. It's close. You get the invulnerability of stone, as you are made out of a castle now. You are your own house. You can keep whatever you want inside you, plus you have absolute control of everything within your castle walls. Plus, I think you can turn into a car sort of, so you have that too.
Now you can fulfill your dream of being a transformer. The Dice fruit is one of the greatest fruits in terms of survivability. This one literally makes you the Man of Steel. Plus, having a sharp edge on you at all times is pretty handy. Like when you open your lunch and your mom didn't cut your sandwich into triangles.
Then there's the Stone Fruit. Most fruits in One Piece are OP because of their destructive power, but this one is OP because of its constructive power, making it one of the absolute best fruits to have in our world. Basically, stone, concrete, and earth are all under your command, and at an astonishing scale. In fact, in a world that isn't almost completely water, like ours, this power is probably more unlimited than it was in the One Piece world. You could build homes for thousands, a mountain palace for yourself, and change the landscape of the planet with a thought. Plus, you can enter the stone yourself. I was very nearly going to put this one in S tier, but it just barely missed the mark. Finally, of course, we have S tier, the must-haves. You thought the last few were great? Well, it gets even more OP than those.
The Opop fruit is the prime example, which, as you've guessed, makes you OP. One of the absolute best fruits in One Piece is indeed one of the absolute best in our world too. It gives you full and absolute control of the space directly around you, allowing you to teleport, freely manipulate the environment, and even switch personalities of other people. The medical applications are well documented, but really, there is no limit to what this fruit allows you to do within your sphere of influence. So, what could be more powerful than that?
Well, finally, we have the Float Fruit. How about a fruit that allows you complete control of anything you have ever touched? Granted, you do not have telekinetic power over humans, but their clothes, weapons, and possessions are yours, as long as you've touched them. And this has nothing to do with your physical strength. The owner of this ability could freely fly around entire archipelagos like his own personal jet. This power gives you control over the planet at an incomparable scale. Or you could just use it to do all those house chores at once and change the channels on your TV without moving.
So that should cover all of the Paramecia fruits. Let us know which one is your favorite and which ones you would put at the top. We discussed these at length and spent several hours thinking about them, but at the end of the day, it's a big mess. So yeah, feel free to argue with us in the comments, and we'll see you next time.
Yo!
Geigo! Hey there!
Don't leave without subbing.
Hey there!
Don't leave without liking.
Hey there!
Don't forget to comment. Hit the bell, hit the bell, hit the bell.